Hello everyone, my name is Corazar, and welcome back to the Vintage Story Guide. We are back here on a very snowy day. We're actually only about 36 hours after we last met up, or last let off, and I went down into some mines to find some copper, and I came up and suddenly there was snow everywhere. Just suddenly snow. Pretty cool though, I really like the atmosphere. Although I don't like how snow comes in through the roof, and I tried to fix that by adding these blue shingle stairs upside down in the roof, and that didn't actually help the snow issue, and it comes through the glass anyway, so I guess moot point. But it did seem to affect our hunger rate when we're in our home. In our last episode, I had mentioned that certain dimensions, 7x7x7 in your house, can really affect whether or not you are going to freeze in winter. I think we ended up sort of accidentally making our house fit that bill. So, bonus. Anyway, in the rest of those 36 hours, I went and got some more fuel to hopefully hold us through the winter. And here it is here. And then I made us a few more replacement tools because I had kind of burned through a couple pickaxes and almost all of our prospecting pick looking for that copper. We're down to, 12? Yeah, that'll work like once, I think. So in this episode, we're going to spend some more time around the house, especially seeing that it's winter and it's kind of hard to see outside with all the snow. And we are going to look at some of the other things that we can make now that we have access to wood planks. We touched on a few of them, namely the doors and the glass. And I don't think we touched on anything else that we can make with wood planks or wood boards. So I wanted to focus on that today because there is a ton of stuff that we can do now that we couldn't do before. But first, since it is cold outside, and we are probably going to have to go out there, we should take a moment and inspect our clothes, because they are not in great shape. In fact, they are in the worst shape that clothes can get. They're all at 0%. Now, clothes can help you ward off the cold. And you'll see, if you hover over any clothing, that at the bottom there, in each tooltip display, it'll say there's a maximum warmth, as well as the condition, as well, and the current warmth that it grants. So you can repair these by using linen and flax twine. Simply take your linen and hover over the clothing you want to repair, and if you left click, suddenly it is now 50% better. You can also repair with the flax twine, although flax twine only gives 10% per repair action, so I'm not going to do it because since 4 flax twine turns into 1 linen, you're getting an extra 25% just from using linen over flax twine. Now, if you have multiple articles of clothing, you'll see that each of them has a different max warmth. And obviously, due to math, it's going to make more sense to focus on the clothing items that give you better warmth over the ones that give you less, like this hunter face mask that maxes out at 0.3 degrees Celsius warmth. So I'm going to go ahead and probably repair my leggings, my coat, my shirt, and maybe my boots. And that should help us get through the winter. I don't want to burn through all of our linen because I want to keep some of it for other uses. But I do want to make sure that we are nice and toasty this winter. So let's go ahead and just 1, 2, 1, 2. There we go. And we still have 14 left. That, 1, 2, 3, 4. You know what? Let's go ahead and do our cape and our poncho as well. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.5 degrees Celsius protection from the cold. And hopefully, if I come out here... Okay, so we are still a little chilly, but it's not quite the 130% or so that this hunger rate maxes out at. So we should be able to last out here for quite a while, even in pretty cold temperatures. I think if we hit -10 or so, we'll want to definitely head back inside, but for now, this will help. So, boards and wood. What can we make out of them? Well, tons of things. And the first thing that I want to focus on is a tool or furniture item that you will use throughout the game of Vintage Story as soon as you get access to them, because they are used for a ton of things. And that is barrels. And barrels are crafted by putting a line of planks down the center, and then one stick in each corner, and you get one barrel. Now barrels do not stack. We can make a second one. I'm going to make 3. But as you can see, barrels do not stack. I cannot put these on top of each other. And barrels obviously hold liquids. And barrels are key to many things. One is you can store milk and honey in them. And if you have milk, you can use barrels to start the process of making cheese. If you have salt, which we do not, you can also use barrels to salt and preserve meat and to pickle vegetables for long-term preservation of vegetables. Barrels can also be used for composting. And if we were to take this rot here, and if we let this pile of blackcurrants rot as well, and got a full 64 liters of rot, we could put that into the barrel, and then in a few days, actually I think 20 days, we would get compost out of it. And compost can be used to make the second best soil in the game, which is handy if you're having trouble finding terra preta, but we have had no trouble finding terra preta, so we're not going to be making compost. Instead, I'm going to use these to start the process of leather making, because there are a whole bunch of things we can make from leather, most notably the largest available general backpacks. Note that I said general because there is a miner's backpack, or a mining bag, that has 10 slots, but one, it requires 2 metal plates for each bag, of kinds that we don't have access to yet, and they only hold stones, ores, minerals, and metals. So they're great when you're going on mining trips, and the rest of the time they are just extra baggage. See what I did there? Now, barrels. How do we fill them? Well, we could come over here and we could take up this jug, and we could wander outside, and hope nothing comes and eats us. And we can break one of these. Oh, here we go. Still one block of water left. We can take this water, drag it all the way inside, and we can fill the barrel with 3 liters of water. That's going to take a while because these barrels hold 50 liters each. I don't like that idea. But since we now have access to boards, we have access to buckets. And buckets are made, not like that. Buckets are made with a 5-block U of single stacked boards of any kind, and a flax twine over top for the handle. And voila, you have your bucket. And buckets hold a lot more water than a jug or a bowl. They hold 10 liters each. That may not sound like a huge boost over the jug, which is 3 liters, but you can do something with a bucket of water that you can't do with either of the other 2 options. And that is, you can make a water source block with it. So I'm going to come out here, and I'm going to dig a little hole. Oh look, we have a hole right here. I'm going to take this hole, and I'm going to press the sprint key, and right-click. And now we have another water source. And this can be repeated forever and ever, thereby making every single water block you place a source. And we will use this in spring when we want to expand our crop fields down in the valley. But for now, we are going to use this to, 1, fill all of the barrels by making a temporary water source in our house. And then I think I'm going to find a place to chisel a well or sink right inside the house so that we have a permanent source of water. And cheesy water physics in 3, 2, 1, go. Perfect. What you didn't know is this is how water actually works in the real world. You just never realized it before. And once I've done using a bucket, I do usually like to fill it back up with water and then either keep it on me or place it down somewhere. And you can place it by doing a crouch right-click to place the bucket instead of dropping its contents all over the place. We're going to go ahead and destroy this water block. There we go, and we're going to go ahead and put the forge back where it was. So now we have 3 barrels full of water. We can now begin the process of leather working. And you can technically do this with 1 barrel of water, but having 3 allows you to continuously process leather so that as you get from one stage to the next one, you can then begin the first stage again. Also, because the latter 2 stages require 1 and 2 days of preparation, respectively. Now, I don't think we have any oak wood, which is unfortunate, and doubly so because it's nightfall. So I don't think we're going to go out and get any unless it is a calm rift day, and that's not. So we're going to stay inside tonight. But tomorrow, we're going to head out into the woods over there, and we're going to knock down as many oak trees as we think we need, which should be enough for 15 logs. In the meantime, we can prepare the first stage. The first stage of leatherworking requires limestone, or specifically, lime. To get lime, just like with the grain, we come up here, we drop our limestone into the quern, and we hold down right-click for a while. I will see all of you in 10 years when this is done. And we're done. And it took about 4 in-game hours to get through that entire stack of lime. So, in order to start the process of leather making, we need to first make lime water. And to do that, we take 50 units of lime, so we're going to go ahead and drop some of these. And drop that in there, and blam, it instantly becomes lime water. Now, we need to find our leather, which I think is in, yes. So we have a bunch of hides here, and each barrel can process effectively about 25 pieces of leather worth of hides. Now, each small raw hide will give you 1 piece of leather. The mediums will give, I think, 2. They'll give 2 each. The larges give, I think, 3, but it might be 4. It's been a while since I've processed larges. I usually deal with mediums. Since the barrel caps at 25, we're going to go with 12 of these medium ones, because we can't go over 25. And we're going to go ahead and drop them in here. And it'll tell you it will turn into 12 soaked hide after 20 hours of sealing. Okay, go ahead and seal. The barrel lid pops on, and we will come back in 20 hours and see how that's doing. In the meantime, there are some other things that I want to do now that we have the saw and planks. Do I have the saw with me? Yes, I do. Okay. With a saw, we can make a better bow. If we take a saw and 2 maple logs, or 2 logs of most kinds, like this in the crafting grid, we can make a raw longbow stave, and if we process it again, we can get a raw recurve bow stave. We currently have a simple bow. I upgraded from our crude bow from way earlier in the game, a while back. The crude bow does 3 piercing damage and has durability of 180. Our current bow, the simple bow, does a 1/4 point more damage and has a little bit more durability. The longbow does 3.75 damage and has 650 durability, which is quite a lot. And the recurve bow trades some of that durability for a little bit more damage. And it's also much more complicated to make. I think this longbow is also pretty involved. But I like the damage output, and with our extra 20% from being a hunter, this is going to really crank up our damage output with the bow. I'm actually going to go ahead and make 2 of these, just in case we lose one or we burn through it. And then we have to let these dry. Now, the game does a poor job of describing what exactly open storage is for drying things, but it generally means it has to be done in your inventory or in an open container, which is kind of a funny definition. If you put a bow staff into a basket or a chest, it won't dry. It needs to be in a bag. But since we can place bags on the ground, we can actually just take up one of these hunter packs we have down here, and we'll temporarily drop, say, this bag right here, plop you in here, put our bow staves in here, and then drop this guy on the ground again. That is now considered open storage, and those bow staves will dry in about a week. So we'll come back to those in a later episode when they're ready, and we can continue on making the bow. We also have the option, now that we have boards, to make more defensive items. Namely, we can make a simple wooden shield. And we do that by placing a stick in the center and then surrounding it by boards. And we get a crude square shield. That can go in our offhand, and what it will do is a couple things. One, if we don't do anything with it, it has a passive chance of blocking 1.5 hit points of damage, but it only occurs 15% of the time. However, if we crouch, then that block chance rises to 90, and the damage reduction rises to 3 points. And you can see when we crouch, we draw the shield a little closer. We're hiding behind it. Now, I've never actually used shields before because they are brand new in 1.16, and I don't know that I will because I usually have a lantern or other light source in my offhand. So I'm probably going to see if I can hang this up here on a rack or something. I cannot. This is going into the first container with an open slot, except for that one. This one. In you go. The next thing I want to build with these new boards we have is in our cellar. We can make shelving by putting 2 boards across the top and 2 across the bottom, and we can make a shelf. And shelves don't have to go on the wall. You can place them on the ground if you want, but I like to keep the ground for vessels and such. So I'm going to go ahead and make a row of shelves. Let's just do them across here. I don't think we need a ton of them. And shelves do a certain specific thing when you put fired crocks full of food on them. Is that unlike when you put them on the ground, if we look at this, we only get information on what's in this crock, not the condition it's in. But if we put it on the shelf, it'll actually tell us how long it will be fresh for. So I'm going to dig out all of our crocks from our vessels here. I'm going to put them on the shelves so that we have a much easier display of our food so we know when it's time to make more. And my system is typically to start from the left, put the shortest expiration timers on the left, top left, and then move down from there, sort of in a zigzag pattern like this. And that's what I'm doing here. Our next storage solution that involves boards isn't my favorite one, and I often don't end up using it, but I wanted to include it for completeness. That is the tool mold rack, which is made by putting a line of boards across the bottom and then making 2 sides out of sticks, and you get a tool mold rack. And the drifters outside are applauding our efforts. These can be placed, I think, primarily against a wall or on a floor. I think they can hover. And they give you 5 slots for storing tool molds. And I think you can see why they're not my favorite, because I have 1 block that can store 5, or 1 block that can store 12, and then they can stack here, so maybe more like, I don't know, 120? I don't know how tall these tool molds will stack in your inventory. But I guess one of the nice things is you can sort of see by hovering over them which one you're going to pick up. Pickaxe mold, pro pick mold, and so on. And so I guess you can organize them more easily because when they're in a storage vessel like this, they're kind of hard to tell what they are without mousing over them. Although mousing over them here versus mousing over them here, I don't know that you've really gained anything. And now for the upgrade that I think I can probably hear some of you clamoring for. If it hasn't been driving you crazy yet, it probably would have if I let this go any longer. But it is time to move on from these horrible reed baskets and these slightly more efficient storage vessels. It is time for the ultimate upgrade in storage, aside from mods, that is. But it is time for the ultimate upgrade of storage that Vintage Story Vanilla has to offer. And that is chests and trunks. And trunks are a new addition to 1.16, so we can explore them together. I want to sort of turn this into a wall so that we have sort of a U-shaped house here. And I do want to move this table out of the way, but for now, it gets to rest here. So I'm going to go ahead and move this tool rack out of the way. So, chests and trunks. How to make? Well, I think you may have seen one of them flash across the output of the crafting grid here earlier. To make a chest, you simply take 8 boards in a square with the middle being empty, and you make a wooden chest. Wooden chests are super handy. They have 16 slots, so double what the reed baskets have, and 1 more row or 4 more inventory slots than what the storage vessels have. But that's not all. 1, chests do work with the carry capacity mod, so we can pick it up, we can walk around with it, we can put it on our backs. We look great with them on our backs. I actually like how they actually render the chests and whatever else you're carrying with this mod. It was very clever. I'm going to go ahead and put this chest down for now so I can pick it up again, because I want to take this one step farther. I don't just want a chest, I want a chest with a label on it. Now we do have a couple options. One, I could drop the chest down and I could make a sign, which is made, I think, with 2 planks or 2 boards and a stick. Yes, there we go. Now I have a sign, and we could drop the sign on the chest, which is at a funny angle. And then we could draw on the sign using, let's not do charcoal, we're kind of short on that. So unlike certain other block games that may or may not exist in the world, you don't just get to write on signs for free. You have to have some kind of drawing utensil or drawing material. In this case, we have limestone, which provides a white text if we draw on signs. So I could label this chest with, oh, I don't know, we could call this seeds. We could then interact with the chest, put our seeds in, but then if we ever move the chest, let's say I want to move the chest, well, now the chest has lost its sign, and the seed sign is still here. Well, what we can do is break the sign, break the chest, and we can combine them in our inventory to make a labeled chest. This doesn't change the chest's internals, it just affixes a sign to the front. The chest now has a sign, and if we click on the sign or the area around it, we can open the chest, whereas previously the sign would have blocked our ability to open the chest. But now we can write seeds on it, and as long as we don't break the chest, we can pick it up with carry capacity and place it, and it will retain its label. And I'm going to go ahead and deal with these drifters before we continue on, because they're getting a little annoying. Hey boys, come tango. Yeah, that's right. You running? What are you? I'm over here. Oh, you dope. Alright, come on. Blessed silence. Are you kidding me? What are you... Why are you all trying to... Ow! Hey. Jerk. Before I say silence again... Okay. Just bees now. Whew. No more drifter chatter. Perfect. So in addition to the chests, we also have the option to make trunks. Trunks are larger chests that get a bit of a bonus to their storage size. So we're going to make 2 chests, we'll put them side by side in the crafting grid, and we get a trunk out of it. A trunk works just like a chest, so apparently you need to put the trunk, you need to aim at the left block where you want the trunk to be. Now, unlike chests, trunks cannot have labels affixed to them, but you can still drop a regular sign on either half of the trunk, although it doesn't have quite the same clean look as a chest with a sign on it. But a trunk has 1 chest's worth, 2 chests worth, and then a bonus 4 slots, for a total of 36 slots. So they are a slightly, and only ever so slightly more efficient method of storage than a chest, but there you have it. And between episodes, I will rearrange our storage here. I will not make you sit through that with me on camera. Now, I believe we were talking about leatherworking and the need for oak. So let's head out into the forest, hopefully we'll survive, and let's go find us some oak after I restock on our food. Okay, with axe and shears in hand, it's time to go find us some oak trees. Now, this one, I don't want to knock it down. This is a 2x2 oak, and I think we've seen it before. And these cannot be regenerated or grown at all. They only spawn with the world. So if we find any other oak trees in here, I will spare this one. Otherwise, we will come back and knock this guy down. Let's see what we can find. Oh, here we go. Here's an oak tree. So we're going to go ahead and shear this guy, and then we'll take him down. So I think we said we needed 15 oak logs. That single stump and this one got us 8. So we need some more, and I think there's an oak tree, yep, right there. So we now have 16 logs, but I think I might want... that might be too many. Let's go over here and we'll take out this tree that I saw. Ah, there you are. And there we go. Okay, now we're home safe and sound. Let's get to making some tannin. To make weak tannin, you need to seal 5 oak logs in a barrel for 24 hours. And that is stage 2 in this 3-step process of making leather. You go from the lime water to the weak tannin, and then, since they did specify weak tannin, there must be, of course, strong tannin. And for this, you start with weak tannin, and then after you complete the weak tannin process, you then seal it with another 5 logs, and it will become oak tannin after a second set of 24 hours of sealing. So we're going to go ahead and leave those to do their thing. But what else can we make with these new boards? Well, I was thinking that it might be nice to have some better gates. And, oh, I just looked at it. There we go. Let's go and make some new gates to replace these rudimentary gates here. The problem with these guys is that they have a small hitbox. And by hitbox I mean they squeeze you as you walk through. They literally are exactly wide enough to let the player through. Because you see, if you get close, you kind of crouch through it, and then you sort of end up getting slowed through it. And that can be dangerous when you're trying to escape from, hordes of drifters or whatever that are chasing you. Wolves. So, while these look pretty decent as far as primitive tech goes, I think I'm going to get rid of these, and I want to make us a couple sets of gates. And they are made like this. Actually, that doesn't look too bad. I was thinking they might look out of place with the nice clean-cut gates against the, rough-hewn wattle fence, but that isn't too bad. I think being the same color helps. Oh, and this one's maple. Rats. Well, you know what? Maple. That doesn't work. That, however, most certainly does. That's very strange. These bees shouldn't be doing much of anything right now. But it seems that even though it is just barely above freezing, they are actually propagating themselves. Well, I'll leave them go for now. And in a comment today, which will give you a hint as to how big of a buffer I keep as far as episodes go, someone, Jason Paris, mentioned that this pit kiln area looks a little out of place. And it's one of those things where it's amazing how once you get used to something being there, you just sort of don't see it anymore. Like, my brain just doesn't see this sometimes when I'm walking, between the house and the wonderful looking packed dirt pillars, or this really ugly panning setup we have that we don't need anymore because we have access to buckets now. I can put that panning setup inside. But yeah, it is actually time to take this thing down, and I've gotten everything I need out of it. I have some extra bowls, I have plenty of ingot molds, and we have plenty of storage vessels coming out the wazoo. So let's take this down and we'll fill this back in with dirt. Much better. Good idea. And while we're on good ideas, let's tear this guy down. Well, the rift activity jumped from calm to high all of a sudden, but there is one last thing I want to touch on before we call the episode, and that is using wood as building blocks. And I'm missing one of the kinds of wood that we can get around here, and I'm not going out now, since it is of course high rift activity, and we have rift right outside our door here that is just waiting to drop drifters on us. Hardly wait for that. But we can at least explore the 4 kinds of wood that we have. We have maple, we have walnut, we have oak, and we have pine. You can make boards into blocks in your inventory, similar to other block-based games. And you have basically 3 main options. You have a full block, you have a stair block, and you have a slab. And just like in other block-based games, the type of wood that you choose affects the final color of the slab, or the block, or the stair. So that is a pine slab. We have an oak slab. We have a maple slab. And we have a walnut slab. And we have some birch outside that I could harvest tomorrow. That is sort of a very pale, sort of like a halfway between this and white. There are other wood types, and I think we mentioned them before, that we don't have access to because some of them grow far to the north, and more of them grow far to the south. They offer some interesting color options if you can get your hands on them. Now, unlike certain other block games, once you've made wood into a particular type of building block, that isn't the end. Because if you decide that you don't need this slab, instead you repurpose these boards to make stairs, you can do just that. Put your saw in the inventory with the slabs, or the stairs, or the blocks that you want to break down, and you can turn them straight back into the boards. Now, this house is pretty much full, although I think I kind of want to maybe replace this loft floor with some kind of wood, because having just bare stone or mud brick blocks with it doesn't really make sense. So I might want to actually update this up here, just to make it look a little more realistic. And in fact, that's what I think I'll be doing. Anyway, I think I like the contrast that this oak has to offer. I think the pine's a bit too bright for in here, and I think the walnut is a little too same. The walnut doesn't offer the same contrast as the oak, and the maple is kind of greenish, and I don't like building with it indoors. I think it looks better outdoors, where the green color can make it look kind of mossy, kind of mildewy. So I'm going to tear all this flooring down, except for this beam, and replace it with oak slabs. Now, when you are working with slabs, and I probably should have done this a long time ago, but you don't have to suffer with the automatic placement of them. So sometimes, I'm trying to place a slab down, let's say I want to place it flat on the floor. So I'm going to aim at the floor and place it. What? It's vertical. Why is it vertical? Well, because in Vintage Story, there is an automatic placement mode, and if you look at the block, sort of imagine about 1/4 of the way inside this sort of imaginary square here, and I'll do this. So inside this square here, if you were to place a block, it gets placed flat. However, if you place it in one of these sort of trapezoidal areas on one edge of the block, it gets placed along that edge in the vertical orientation. Now, I'm pretty used to that quirk of the auto placement, so it doesn't bother me too much, but if it bothers you, you can take your slabs and put them in your crafting grid once, and when you take them out, they will update to the horizontal mode. And if you put them in a second time, you can cycle them to vertical, and a third time back to auto. We're doing horizontal, so we'll leave it there for the day. We have a ghost block. 2 of them. Those drifters cursing my blocks. Well, everyone, with the drifter noises all around us and the rifts humming their merry tune to us, I think it is time that we bunker down for the night and call this an episode. I hope you enjoyed our discussions and exploration in what we can build with our access to wooden boards, and we will check up on the status of some of those later when some of those processes have completed. Anyway, my name has been XRowBoat. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.